After the college entrance exam, I kindly shielded the campus belle from a thrown bottle of sulfuric acid, but she, eyes reddened, accused me of coveting her 4,000-year first beauty. I thought it was a misunderstanding, but the next day, she showed up at the classroom door with bodyguards, forcing me to sign a psychological damage compensation agreement worth tens of millions. You poor student, you could never repay that in a lifetime. The young miss is kind. Just consider yourself the dog who pays. From then on, I became the campus belle's personal dog, enduring endless torments and humiliation. My former desk mate used to laugh at me, saying a toad like me could only dream of a swan, that I deserved to be a rich man's slave for life. I just thought I was unlucky. But a year later, at our parents' funeral, she was my desk mate and, drunk, spoke the truth. That acid back then, I was the one who was going to throw it on you anyway. Who told you to snatch my guaranteed admission spot? The desk mate hugged the school beauty and slapped a paternity test in my face. It showed the school beauty and his child. Your parents' deaths were a gift your desk mate gave me. As for you, you're nothing but a piece in our play. It turned out everything I'd gone through was just their vicious game. I burst out of the hotel and ran straight into an out-of-control truck. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at school. The campus beauty was screaming in terror as the bottle of sulfuric acid flew toward her. Ah! Sophia Taylor's face, praised as a once-in-4,000 years beauty, was now written full of panic. A yellow-brown liquid drew a vicious arc through the air, heading straight for her face. I instinctively wanted to rush forward, just like in my previous life. But just as the calf muscles tensed, the two distorted, alcohol-stained smiles of my parents at their funeral, hers and Daniel Brown's, flashed through my mind. That acid back then, I was going to throw it at you anyway. Who told you to steal my recommendation slot? Your parents' deaths were a gift from your desk mate. As for you, you're just a piece in our little play. The bone-deep hatred was like an ice pick, instantly piercing every fiber of my being. I not only stopped in my tracks, I even calmly took a step backward. In a flash, I grabbed the arm of the person beside me and tugged hard forward. Ethan, what are you doing? My best friend from before and my desk mate in my past life, Daniel Brown, cried out. He stumbled as I yanked him and ended up right between Sophia and me. SSSHHH. A sickening sound rang out, accompanied by the foul stench of burning flesh. On my face, Daniel let out a pig-like wail, clutching his face and rolling on the ground. The classmates around him were all terrified, screams rising one after another. As for me, I watched all of it calmly. Sophia was also so frightened she collapsed to the ground, but she wasn't looking at Daniel writhing in pain on the floor. She was looking at me. Her pretty apricot-shaped eyes were first shocked, then filled with overwhelming fury. Ethan Johnson, why didn't you save me? Did you do it on purpose? She didn't care about Daniel, who had shielded her from the acid. Instead, she immediately came to question me. Exactly the same as last life. Only, in the last life the question she asked was why I went to block it, whether I was trying to use my ruined face to win her sympathy. I looked at her coldly, saying nothing. It's you. It must be you who hired someone to throw acid on me. If you can't have me, you'll destroy me. You're so vicious. Sophia's scream pierced everyone's eardrums. The homeroom teacher and several other teachers finally reacted, shouting, "Call an ambulance." They rushed over. Homeroom teacher Mr. Thompson grabbed my collar, trembling with anger. Ethan, what on earth is going on? Did you do this? I calmly pushed his hand away. Teacher, which eye of yours saw that it was me who did it? Then why didn't you save her? You were the closest. I smiled. Mr. Thompson, am I her father or her mother? Why on earth should I throw myself in front of her? Besides, didn't Daniel take the bullet for her? I never expected that my good brother would love her so much. My gaze swept over Daniel on the ground, nearly fainting from the pain, then moved to Sophia's ashen face. You two really are as solid as gold when it comes to love. Sophia's body trembled, and a flash of panic crossed her eyes. Soon, the sounds of an ambulance and police car approached from a distance. Daniel was carried onto a stretcher. Half of his face was already a bloody, mangled mess, unbearable to look at. Sophia was also treated as a victim and witness and was taken into the police car. And I, as the prime suspect, was escorted away by 2 policemen, one on each side. Before getting into the squad car, I glanced back once. In the crowd, a figure wearing a baseball cap silently melted into the shadows. A cold smile curled at the corner of my mouth. The interrogation room's light was ghastly and glaring. The police officer across the table knocked on it with a stern expression. "Ethan Johnson, we'll ask you once more. Did you order someone to throw that bottle of sulfuric acid?" "No." My answer was curt and decisive. "Then why, in that critical moment, did you push your good friend Daniel Brown forward?" "I didn't push him. I only gave him a little tug, trying to make him be careful too." I lied without changing my expression. Who knew he'd react so strongly and rush up himself? Maybe that's the power of love. The policeman was momentarily stumped. He clearly hadn't expected a high schooler to be this slick. "The victims Sophia Taylor and Daniel Brown both identified you, saying you turned love into hate and carried out a deliberate revenge." "Oh, both of them said that." I feigned surprise. "Officer, don't you think that's strange?" "What's strange?" "The whole school knows I have a crush on Sophia, and Daniel is my best friend. If I really wanted revenge, why would I drag my best friend into hurting the girl I love most?" That logic doesn't make sense. I spread my hands, looking innocent. Unless they had already conspired together, planning to frame me. The police officer's frown deepened. "What evidence do you have?" "I have no evidence. I'm just making a reasonable inference." I looked at him. "Officer, when you handle a case, don't you also rely on evidence and logic?" The interrogation reached a stalemate, with no direct evidence, just the statements of the 2 parties. They really couldn't do anything to me. A few hours later, my parents hurriedly arrived at the police station. The moment my mother saw me, tears started streaming down her face. She kept turning my hand over and over, examining it. "Ethan, are you okay? They didn't hit you, did they?" My father stood off to the side with a grave expression, his brow tightly furrowed. He was an honest, simple worker who had never dealt with the authorities in his life. At this moment, he didn't even know where to put his hands. "Officer, there must be some mistake. My son isn't that kind of child," he explained to the police almost humbly. Seeing them worrying themselves sick for me, my heart ached as if pricked by needles. In my previous life, it was because of me that they were driven into a corner by Sophia and Daniel, and in the end they tragically died in an accidental car crash. This life, I will never let tragedy repeat. Just then, the interrogation room door was pushed open, and a middle-aged man in an expensive suit walked in, followed by Sophia. He was Sophia's father, the chairman of the Taylor Group, Richard Taylor. He didn't even glance at my parents and walked straight up to the police. "Captain Liu, the matter is crystal clear. That poor boy was jealous of my daughter, which is why he committed such a vicious act. I demand that he be arrested immediately and sentenced to life imprisonment." His tone was filled with an arrogance that brooked no argument. Sophia hid behind him, looking at me with spiteful eyes, a smug, cold smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. My father was so angry his face turned red. "On what grounds do you say that about my son? Everything needs evidence." Only then did Richard Taylor glance at my father, his eyes full of contempt. "Evidence? My words, Richard Taylor's words, are the evidence." He turned toward me, his voice cold. "Kid, I don't care what tricks you use. You're as good as dead. I'll make you, and your family, pay the most terrible price for what you've done. I'll make your parents lose their jobs, end up on the streets, and make you spend the rest of your life repenting in prison." My mother trembled all over with fear, and yet I smiled. I met Richard Taylor's threatening gaze and spoke word by word. "Is that so? Then I'll wait. However, I advise you to mind your daughter first. After all, something like stealing a guaranteed admission spot, if it gets exposed, would probably look worse than pouring sulfuric acid." As soon as the words left my mouth, Richard Taylor's and Sophia's faces changed instantly. "You, what nonsense are you talking about?" Sophia's voice was sharp, with a barely perceptible hint of panic. Richard Taylor's face was so sullen it seemed to drip, staring at me intently. "What guaranteed admission quota? I don't understand what you're saying." I shrugged. "It doesn't matter if you don't understand. Soon someone will make you understand." I knew that this sentence had already lodged like a thorn in their hearts. In my previous life, Sophia set that vicious trap with Daniel specifically to snatch away the only guaranteed admission spot that should have been mine. This matter was their greatest secret. The police looked at us suspiciously. "What guaranteed admission quota? Does it have anything to do with the case?" "No." Richard Taylor denied immediately, then turned to the officer. "Team Leader Lou, this kid is making a fuss, trying to stall. Hurry up and handle the case." Team Leader Lou glanced at me, then at Richard Taylor, and finally waved his hand. "Insufficient evidence. You may leave. But Ethan Johnson, until the matter is fully investigated, you are not allowed to leave the city and must be available when summoned." Richard Taylor's face was ashen, but he said nothing more. He grabbed Sophia and turned to leave. After leaving the police station, my parents breathed a long sigh of relief. "Ethan, you scared us to death just now," my mother still said, trembling. My father patted my shoulder. "Son, what on earth happened? What admission quota?" I looked at their worried faces and felt a warmth in my heart. "Dad, Mom, do you believe me?" They glanced at each other and both nodded firmly. "Of course we believe you." "That's good." I smiled. "Leave the rest to me." "Don't worry, I won't let anyone bully our family again." When I got home, I locked myself in my room. I knew Richard Taylor would never let it go. With his methods, he would soon use his connections to fabricate charges against me. I had to find a weapon to fight back before he made his move. I turned on the computer and logged into an email account I hadn't used in a long time. In my last life, to pursue Sophia, I did many things for her, including fixing her computer. At that time, I accidentally discovered a hidden folder that contained some chat logs and photos. Out of some instinct, I backed up the entire folder to my email. Later, I was tormented beyond recognition and had completely forgotten about it. It wasn't until I was reborn that it suddenly occurred to me. My hands trembling, I clicked open that encrypted folder. I entered the password and the folder opened. The contents made my blood boil instantly, my eyes burning with rage. Inside the folder were the chat logs between Sophia and Daniel, starting from their first year of high school. "Dear, that Ethan really is an idiot. He believes whatever I say. Having him do our homework and bring us food. He's more obedient than a dog. When he gets the guaranteed admission slot, we'll go ahead with the plan and ruin his reputation. By then, the slot will be yours, and I'll be yours too." After that, there were more disgraceful conversations and intimate photos of the two of them. Even the day before I blocked the acid for Sophia in my last life. It turned out that from the very beginning, I was just a part of their little play. The brotherhood I believed in, the innocent crush I thought was pure, were all carefully orchestrated cons. I gripped the mouse so hard my knuckles whitened from the force. Anger and humiliation churned in my chest like molten lava. I downloaded and saved all of it, then made a call. "Hello, is this reporter James? I have big news about the Taylor family's heiress and the guaranteed college admission spot. Are you interested?" After hanging up, my phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I answered the call. "Ethan Johnson, is that you?" A cold male voice spoke on the other end. "It's me. Someone's offering $50,000 for one of your legs. But our boss said if you're willing to hand over the thing you have, that $50,000 will be yours." I sneered. "The thing? What thing? Don't play dumb." "Sophia Taylor's computer backup." Just as expected, they came. They moved even faster than I had imagined. "What if I say no? Then we'll have to come and get it ourselves. While we're at it, we'll also let you taste Daniel's flavor." The call was disconnected. I stared at the pitch-black night outside the window without a shred of fear. Instead, there was a trace of excitement. The fish had finally taken the bait. I didn't call the police. I knew that conventional methods would be useless against someone like Richard Taylor. He has money and connections. He can easily paint black as white. I must use unconventional means to ensure he never gets another chance to recover. I call my parents and ask them to spend the night at relatives tonight, saying the house is having its wiring inspected. They didn't ask many questions, only reminded me to stay safe. I hung up the phone and began setting my trap. I put away all the valuable things in the house, then dragged a dust-covered box out from under the bed. Inside were some bottles and jars left over from the chemistry experiments I did in middle school. I mixed several chemical reagents together, poured them into a few glass bottles, and placed them in the most easily reachable spots by the door and windowsill. These substances won't be lethal, but once the bottle shatters, they'll release a large amount of pungent gas with a strong, tear-inducing effect. After finishing all this, I turned off the lights and sat quietly in the dark living room, waiting for the guests to arrive. At midnight, there was a faint click from the door lock. Here we go. I held my breath, my heart betraying me as it began to race. The door was quietly pushed open, and two dark figures tiptoed in. They switched on their flashlights, the faint beams sweeping across the room. This kid's family is so poor, there's nothing here. Don't talk nonsense, look for things first. The computer, USB drives, don't leave anything behind. One of the dark figures walked toward my room, while the other went toward the balcony. The shadow heading for my room kicked the glass bottle I had left by the door. Smack! The bottle shattered with a sound. A plume of white, dense smoke instantly spread out. Cough, cough, cough. What is that? My eyes. The dark figure let out a painful coughing sound, and the flashlight fell to the ground. The accomplices on the balcony heard the noise and immediately became alert. What's wrong? There's an ambush. Cough, cough. He hadn't finished speaking when he also knocked over the bottles on the windowsill. In an instant, the whole room filled with a pungent smell. The two dark figures were choked until tears and snot streamed down their faces. Their fighting ability instantly dropped to zero. I put on the gas mask I had prepared long ago and stepped out of the darkness, still holding a baseball bat. Welcome. My voice sounded especially cold in the empty living room. The two dark figures jumped in fright. Seeing my appearance, they were even more stunned into silence. Why, who are you? I'm the person you're looking for. I stepped closer, the baseball bat in my hand, scraping the ground with a shoo-shoo sound. Tell me, who sent you? We don't know. Still pretty stubborn, huh? Without a word, I swung the stick and slammed it hard onto one of their calves. A piercing, agonized scream rang out. The other man was terrified, scrambling and crawling, trying to get out. I kicked him flat onto the ground. I'll ask you again, who sent you? It was Mr. Taylor. Richard Taylor. The dark figure whose leg had been broken finally couldn't hold on any longer and howled in pain. Very good. I nodded in satisfaction, then took out my phone and aimed it at them. Now, tell me everything you know about Richard Taylor. Include why he sent you, and any dirty work you used to do for him. Well said. I might consider letting you off. Under my threats and inducements, the two of them spilled everything about Richard Taylor like beans from a bamboo tube. Tax evasion, commercial bribery, and even it involved a life. I recorded all of their confessions. After finishing all of this, I looked at the two wailing on the ground and dialed the police. Hello, police. There are burglars in my house, and I broke someone's leg. Please hurry. After hanging up, I took off my mask and breathed a long, deep sigh. Everything had gone according to my plan. However, at that moment, my phone screen suddenly lit up. It was a text message from an unknown number. The message was brief, containing only one sentence. Not bad, but not enough. Want to know the real cause of your parents' deaths back then? My pupils suddenly contracted. My parents. Their real cause of death back then? In my previous life, they died in a carefully planned car accident. The driver who caused it was drunk and died at the scene, and everything became an accidental death with no one to testify. But that text message was like a key that opened Pandora's box, sealed deep in my memory. I suddenly remembered that at my parents' funeral, Daniel was holding Sophia and drunkenly said, "Your parents' deaths were a gift from me to you." At the time, I was crazed with grief and hatred and assumed Daniel had taken responsibility for the accident, just to flatter Sophia. But thinking about it now, how could an ordinary high school student possibly have the means to engineer such a flawless car crash? There must be someone else behind them. Cold sweat instantly soaked my back. I immediately redialed that number, but what I heard was a cold, automated message. The number you have dialed is not in service. I stared fixedly at that text message, my mind racing. Who is the sender? How could he know the cause of my parents' deaths? Why is he telling me this? What is his purpose this time? Countless questions circled in my mind, yet I couldn't find any answers. At that moment, the wail of a siren grew nearer. I quickly deleted that text message and put my phone away. The police arrived quickly, took the two unlucky thieves away, and brought me back to the station to give a statement. This time, my role had changed from suspect to victim and someone who acted in self-defense. When questioned by the police, I acted like an overly frightened, ordinary high school student and embellished the account of what happened. They said they were sent by Richard Taylor. They wanted to take the things in my hands, and they were going to break my legs. I pretended I was about to cry. "Officer, I'm so scared. Do you think they'll come back to take revenge on me?" The young officer who was taking the statement patted my shoulder sympathetically. "Don't worry, we'll definitely protect your safety. As for this Richard Taylor you mentioned, we'll launch an investigation immediately." With the two thieves' statements and my airtight written record, Richard Taylor couldn't clear himself even if he jumped into the Yellow River. When I walked out of the police station, dawn was already breaking. I didn't go home. Instead, I took a taxi to the city's largest news bureau. I met the reporter James, whom I had contacted yesterday. He is a man in his 30s who looks quite shrewd. "Did you bring the stuff?" he asked bluntly. I pushed a USB drive in front of him. On this is the chat history between Sophia Taylor and Daniel Brown, and what I recorded last night. Reporter James plugged the USB drive into the computer and began to browse through it rapidly. His expression shifted from calm at first, to surprise, then to shock, and finally to uncontrollable excitement. "My God, this is a huge bombshell." He rubbed his hands excitedly. "With this stuff, I guarantee the Taylor Group will be finished within a day." I looked at his greedy expression and spoke calmly. "I have one more condition." "What conditions?" "I want you to help me look up someone." I wrote that unfamiliar phone number on a piece of paper and handed it to him. "I want to know who owns this number, where he is." Reporter James glanced at the number and frowned. "This is a bit difficult. It might be an anonymous black card, but I can try." He folded the note. "As long as the story runs and Taylor Group stock crashes, I get the bonus, and I'll hire the best private detective for you." "That's a promise." I stood up, preparing to leave. "Wait." Reporter James called after me. "Kid, aren't you afraid the Taylor family will retaliate?" I turned back and smiled at him. "Afraid? I'm only afraid they won't die painfully enough." The news spread faster than I had imagined. That noon, a report titled "Shocking. Taylor Group Heiress Colludes with Deskmate to Seize Guaranteed Admission Quota, Framing an Innocent Classmate," detonated across the internet like a heavy bomb. In the report, reporter James cleverly blurred out the chat logs between Sophia and Daniel and published them, along with two thieves' confessions, directly pointing to mastermind Richard Taylor. In an instant, public opinion erupted. Taylor Group's stock plunged in response, nearly hitting the daily limit down. The school immediately responded as well, announcing the establishment of an investigative committee to thoroughly probe the recommendation quota incident. Sophia and Daniel became pariahs, reviled by everyone. Their social accounts were overrun by enraged netizens, flooded with all manner of insults and curses. "Vile, snake-hearted bitches. Get out of our school. Daniel isn't a good guy either. He sold out his brother for a woman. Feeling sorry for Ethan. Those two scumbags really scammed him." I looked at the continuously updating comments on my phone, feeling not a shred of emotion. This is just the appetizer. In the afternoon, I received a call from my homeroom teacher, Mr. Thompson, asking me to come back to school. I walked into the office and found Richard Taylor and Sophia were there too. After not seeing each other for a few days, Richard Taylor seemed to have aged 10 years. His hair was graying and his face gaunt. As for Sophia, her face was full of resentment and unwillingness. The way she looked at me seemed to wish she could tear me apart alive. When she saw me, Richard Taylor let out a thud and actually knelt down immediately. "Ethan Johnson, I was wrong. I was possessed by a devil. I'm begging you, spare us." He wept bitterly, snot and tears smearing his face, his previous arrogance gone. "As long as you come forward and tell the media this was all a misunderstanding, name your price and I'll pay. $10 million. No, $50 million. That'll keep you fed and clothed for life." I looked at him coldly. "And what if I don't?" Richard Taylor's face instantly twisted into a ghastly expression. "Don't be shamelessly ungrateful. Do you really think that bringing me down will mean smooth sailing for you? Let me tell you, a cornered rabbit still bites." "Oh," I raised an eyebrow. "How do you want to bite me?" "You, Dad, stop begging him." Sophia suddenly screamed, pointing at my nose and cursing. "Ethan Johnson, you despicable, shameless scoundrel. You use such vile methods to get revenge on me. You never loved me. You're just jealous. Even if I lose my reputation and fall into ruin, I'll always be more noble than you. A rat in the gutter." Smack! A sharp slap rang out, violently landing on Sophia's face. Everyone was stunned. The one who struck her was neither me nor Richard Taylor. It was a well-dressed, dignified matron standing at the office door. Two bodyguards in black suits with expressionless faces followed behind her. The noblewoman slowly walked up to me, scrutinizing me from head to toe with a complex look in her eyes. Then she reached out, gently stroked my cheek, and tears silently slid down. You really look like," she murmured to herself. I was left completely bewildered by this sudden turn of events. "Who are you?" The matron did not answer me. Instead, she turned and looked at Richard Taylor and his daughter with an icy, bone-chilling stare. "Richard Taylor, it's been 20 years. You really haven't given up your wicked intentions." When Richard Taylor saw the wealthy woman, he looked as if he'd seen a ghost. His face instantly went pale and his whole body trembled like a sieve. "You, how are you here or not? I'm supposed to have been dead long ago, right?" The noblewoman sneered, her voice filled with boundless hatred. "Too bad. I'm lucky I didn't die. Today, I'm here to settle the score from back then. And also," she turned her head and looked at me again, her voice trembling, "I'm here to take my son home." So, I was completely stunned. The others in the office also wore expressions of disbelief. My parents are ordinary wage earners. How could I possibly have a mother who looks so wealthy? The matron seemed to have noticed my confusion. She took a yellowed newspaper and a paternity test report out of her Hermes bag. "Child, I know this is hard for you to accept right now, but this paternity report and this missing person notice from 20 years ago can prove everything." She handed the items to me. I took it with trembling hands, my eyes landing on the last column of the appraisal report. According to the appraisal, Ethan Johnson and the client Eleanor York have a parent-child relationship. Eleanor York? That name? I feel like I've heard it somewhere. I strained to search my mind, and suddenly a thought flashed through like lightning. The York family of the capital. That top-tier elite whose stamp on the ground makes the whole business world tremble. And Eleanor York is precisely the only daughter of the York family who has been missing for 20 years. I looked up in disbelief at the woman who claimed to be my mother. Tears filled her eyes, full of the joy of having regained something lost, and deep remorse toward me. "Child, I'm sorry. Your mother was useless and let you suffer all these years. Back then, I was hunted by enemies and, with no choice, I had to leave you at the gate of a welfare home, thinking I'd come back for you once things calmed down. But unexpectedly, I was framed, lost my memory, and ended up stranded in a foreign place. Only recently did I regain my memory, and I came back to find you at the first opportunity." Her explanation sounded plausible, yet it was full of drama. For a moment, I didn't know how to react. Meanwhile, on the other side, Richard Taylor had completely collapsed to the ground, his face ashen. "Eleanor, Miss Eleanor, No, Mrs. York, what happened back then? What happened back then really had nothing to do with me. He babbled incoherently in his defense. Nothing to do with you? Eleanor York, that is, my biological mother, snorted coldly. Richard Taylor, back then you were nothing but a dog on my father's side. If not for the York family support, where would you be today? But you repaid kindness with ingratitude, colluding with outsiders, and causing the York family to be destroyed and its people to perish. If I'm not mistaken, you're the one who pursued me back then and caused my family to be torn apart, weren't you? Richard Taylor's body trembled even more violently. It's not me. Really, it's not me. Whether it was you, the police will investigate and find out. Eleanor York no longer paid him any attention. She turned to me, and her gaze instantly softened. Ethan, come home with Mom, okay? Mom will make up for all the grievances you've suffered over these 20 years. I looked at the hopeful look in her eyes, then at Richard Taylor sprawled on the ground in humiliating defeat. A crazy thought sprouted in my mind. I spoke slowly. I can go home with you, but I have one condition. What condition? Mom will agree to anything for you. My gaze shifted to Sophia, who was cowering in the corner, trembling. I want her. Make her my maid for 3 years. I want her to taste what it's like to be treated like a dog and ordered around. Sophia's face suddenly went deathly pale. Eleanor York was startled for a moment. Then she smiled. Okay, just as you say. She looked at Richard Taylor, her tone leaving no room for argument. Did you hear that? Let your daughter be my son's servant for 3 years. Otherwise, I won't mind making your Taylor family disappear from this world entirely. Richard Taylor ultimately gave in. In the face of absolute power and wealth, that pathetic scrap of dignity he had was worthless. That afternoon, a legally binding made contract was placed right in front of me. Sophia, holding back tears, signed her name on the contract in humiliation. From today on, she would no longer be the lofty Miss Taylor of the Taylor family, but my Ethan Johnson's exclusive maid. And I, along with my biological mother, Eleanor York, boarded the private jet returning to the capital. On the plane, Eleanor York also brought my adoptive parents along. The two elderly people looked awkward and uneasy, sitting on the luxurious leather seats, not knowing where to put their hands. Eleanor York held their hands and thanked them sincerely. Big brother, sister-in-law, thank you over the years for taking such good care of Ethan. We, the York family, will never forget this kindness. She handed them a black card. There's $100 million on this card, a small token for your support of the two elders. The password is Ethan's birthday. From now on, you will be Ethan's godfather and godmother, and also honored guests of our York family. My parents were so taken aback by the spectacle that they repeatedly waved their hands, refusing to accept it. I smiled and slipped the card into my mother's hand. Dad, Mom, please accept it. This is a token of her goodwill. From now on, we're still one family. After calming my adoptive parents, I finally had the chance to have a proper conversation with my biological mother, who was still a stranger to me. What exactly happened that year? I asked the biggest question in my heart. Eleanor York's eyes dimmed as she sank into distant memories. Our York family started in the antiques business, and by my father's generation, we were as rich as a country. But because of that, we also attracted the covetousness of many people. 20 years ago, a mysterious organization called Scorpio set its sights on a family heirloom of ours, the Nine-Dragon Jade Cup. They used every means possible to seize the cup, even going so far as to bribe an insider in our family. That insider was Richard Taylor. He leaked our security information, which allowed Scorpio to successfully infiltrate, murder my parents, and steal the Jade Cup. I was holding you, just born, ready to go out, and we miraculously escaped. But they still pursued me relentlessly. I had no choice and could only... Her voice choked off there. I silently handed her a tissue. And then, later, they drove me to the edge of a cliff, and I jumped into the sea to survive. Although I escaped with my life, I lost all my memories and only recently began to remember everything. Scorpio. I chewed on the name. Could that text message have been sent by them? Eleanor York's expression changed. What message? I told her the content of the mysterious text I had received earlier. After listening, her expression grew extremely grave. In your previous life, your foster parents' car accident. I'm afraid it was connected to them as well. Why did they do that? Just for a jade cup? I still didn't understand. Eleanor York shook her head. The Nine-Dragon Jade Cup is more than just an antique. Legend says the Jade Cup hides a secret about immortality. Immortality? This sounds utterly like a tale from 1001 Nights. But looking at Eleanor York's solemn expression, I knew the matter was far more complicated than I had imagined. Our enemies between us are not only Richard Taylor and Daniel Brown. There is yet a more powerful, more mysterious enemy, hiding in the shadows. The plane slowly descended onto the capital's private airport. Stepping out of the cabin, I saw a row of black Rolls-Royces neatly parked on the tarmac. An elderly but spry-head butler with graying hair, accompanied by a group of servants, stood respectfully in front of the cars. "Miss, welcome home." "Alfred." Eleanor York nodded to him, then took my hand and introduced, "This is my son, Ethan Johnson." Alfred looked at me. In his clouded eyes, a flash of excitement passed. "Mr. Ethan, you're finally back." Within a single day, my life underwent a cataclysmic change. From an ordinary high school student from a poor family, I became the heir to a top-tier wealthy family. But this staggering wealth also came with enormous danger. Scorpio, the Nine-Dragon Jade Cup, the secret of longevity. All of this felt like an invisible web enclosing me within. I knew that my rebirth might not be just about vengeance. It was more about uncovering the earth-shattering secret that had been hidden for 20 years. Returning to the York family estate, I finally understood what it meant to belong to the very top of high society. The estate covers nearly 1,000 mu, with pavilions, towers, and small bridges overflowing water, comparable to an ancient imperial garden. Alfred arranged the best room for me. Its decor was more luxurious than the presidential suite of a five-star hotel. My foster parents were put in a separate, quiet villa on the grounds, with dedicated servants to care for them. The next day, Sophia was sent to the estate. She was wearing a simple maid's outfit, her hair cut short, the former arrogance gone from her face, leaving only numbness and emptiness. When she saw me, she didn't even dare lift her head. She only called out timidly, "Mr. Ethan." I sat on the sofa, legs crossed, sizing her up. "Go clean my shoes." Sophia's body stiffened for a moment, but she obediently knelt down, picked up the shoe brush, and began clumsily polishing my leather shoes. I watched her humiliated appearance, yet felt not the slightest thrill of revenge. Instead, I found it somewhat tasteless. What meaning is there in tormenting a shell that has already lost its soul? All right, I withdrew my foot. "From now on, you'll be responsible for cleaning my room." "Yes, Mr. Ethan." She kept her head down and stepped out. In the days that followed, I began to familiarize myself with the York family's businesses. With Alfred's help, I learned that the York family not only dealt in antiques, but was also involved in real estate, finance, technology, and multiple other fields, a vast business empire. And I, as the sole heir, am going to shoulder all of this. Eleanor York hired the best teachers for me, teaching me financial management, business operations, and even combat and shooting. I was like a sponge, voraciously absorbing this knowledge. I understood that to stand against a powerful enemy like Scorpio, money alone wasn't enough. I had to make myself strong enough. During that time, reporter James called me. "Mr. Ethan, we've got a lead on the number you're investigating." "Tell me." "That's a satellite phone number. We tracked it. The last place it sent a message was in the Golden Triangle region." "The Golden Triangle?" "That was one of the most chaotic and dangerous places in the world. Would the headquarters of Scorpio be there?" "I understand." I hung up the phone and fell into thought. Just then, someone knocked on my door. It was Sophia. She came in holding a cup of coffee, her head bowed. "Mr. Ethan, your coffee." I took the coffee, but noticed that her wrist was mottled with purplish bruises. "What's going on?" I asked with a frown. Sophia was startled, and hurriedly pulled her hand back. In nothing. I accidentally touched it myself. I stared into her eyes. She looked away, unwilling to meet my gaze. I understood clearly in my heart. In this manner, although there were many servants, the hierarchy was strict. Sophia, bearing this guilty status, had probably been bullied by the other servants many times. I set down my coffee and stood up. Come with me. I led her to the servants' dining room on the first floor. It was lunchtime. Dozens of servants were eating. When they saw me enter, everyone immediately stood up and greeted me respectfully. Good morning, Mr. Ethan. My gaze swept over everyone present. From today on, Sophia will only take orders from me. Whoever dares to pull tricks behind her back or bully her, don't blame me for being ruthless. My voice was not loud, but it was full of menace. Everyone fell silent, scared to make a sound. Sophia stood behind me, looking at my back in disbelief. Her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. There was shock, confusion, and even a hint of being moved. I ignored her, said that, and turned away. I wasn't pitying her. I only felt that she was my spoil, and only I had the right to deal with her. No one else could lay a hand on her. However, I didn't expect that my inadvertent action would plant a strange seed in Sophia's heart. That night, I was in the study, studying a map of the Golden Triangle. Sophia knocked and came in. Mr. Ethan, is there anything I can help you with? No need. But she didn't leave. She hesitated for a long time before summoning the courage to speak. Today, thank you. I looked up and glanced at her. I told you you're mine. I don't want to see my things dirted by others. My words were very hurtful, but Sophia's face no longer showed the humiliation and anger of before. She just looked at me quietly, her gaze deep. Mr. Ethan, I know you hate me. I hate myself too. If I could have one chance to start over, I would definitely not. She didn't finish her sentence, but I read those unspoken words in her eyes. My heart trembled inexplicably for a moment. Reborn? Could it be her too? The thought flashed by and was immediately dismissed by me. Impossible. If she had been reborn as well, with her spoiled temper, how could she possibly be willing to obey my commands? I must have been overthinking. Get out, I said coldly, interrupting her thoughts. Sophia's body shuddered, and the light in her eyes instantly dimmed. She silently stepped back out and closed the door. I stared at the closed door, but my heart couldn't calm. Sophia's look just now, and that unfinished sentence were like a thorn stuck in my chest. In the following days, she became even more quiet and cautious in everything she did. Only, the way she looked at me carried something I couldn't understand. I had no inclination to probe into her changes, because a more important piece of news had arrived. Mr. Ethan, our people in the Golden Triangle have found traces of Scorpio. Alfred reported to me with a stern face. They seem to be holding a large underground auction. What are they auctioning? The Nine-Dragon Jade Cup. My heart clenched suddenly. The heirloom treasure stolen 20 years ago has finally resurfaced. Time and place. 3 days from now, at the Shadow Casino in the Golden Triangle. Prepare a plane. I'm going personally. I decided without hesitation. Ethan, that's too dangerous. Eleanor York rushed over when she heard and stopped me with a worried face. The Golden Triangle is a lawless place, and Scorpio is practically the local boss there. If you go alone, it's like a lamb walking into a tiger's den. Mom, don't worry. I held her hand. I'm not going alone. I've already contacted Interpol. They've been watching Scorpio for a long time. This time we'll coordinate from the inside and the outside. And besides, I looked at her. The Nine-Dragon Jade Cup is our York family's possession and the chief culprit who killed my grandparents. I must take it back with my own hands. Seeing my resolute attitude, Eleanor York no longer stopped me, but she did provide me with a top-notch bodyguard team. The night before departure, I was in my room organizing equipment. Sophia walked in. Mr. Ethan, are you going on a long trip? Is it a very dangerous place? I glanced at her and didn't answer. She was silent for a moment, then suddenly took a talisman from her pocket and handed it to me. I got this from the temple, hoping it can bless you and bring you back safely. I stared at the roughly made talisman and was stunned. She would actually get a talisman for my safety? What are you doing? Putting on a show for me? I sneered. Sophia's face went pale. She shook her head vigorously. No, Mr. Ethan. I am sincere. She lifted her head, mustering the greatest courage of her life, and looked me straight in the eyes. Ethan Johnson, I know my sins are deep, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. But in the last life, you shielded me from the sulfuric acid, worked like a beast of burden for me, and in the end died because of me. I actually... Her voice trembled with agitation. My mind, however, exploded when I heard the 3 words last life. She really was reborn too. You. Remember? My voice trembled as well. Sophia's tears finally broke through the dam. She nodded heavily. I am sorry. Ethan, I'm really sorry. She was sobbing uncontrollably, like a helpless child. I stood there dazed, my heart in turmoil. So it turned out she, like me, carried the memories of her past life and had returned to this point in time. No wonder she would willingly endure humiliation. No wonder the look in her eyes toward me was so complicated. So it wasn't acting after all, but a heartfelt confession. I looked at her tear-streaked face, and the wall of hatred in my heart that had stood for years seemed to develop a small crack. When did you remember? I asked. Just that night when you asked me to be your maid. I had a very, very long dream about everything from our past life. When I woke up, I realized how foolish and how cruel my actions had been. Her words explained all my doubts. I fell silent. It turned out that what I had thought was revenge was only tormenting a soul that carried the same heavy shackles. Then do you still hate Daniel? I asked another crucial question. At the mention of Daniel, a towering hatred flared up in Sophia's eyes. Hey, I wish I could have him torn to pieces. In my last life, he was the one who led me step by step, amplifying the darkness in my heart, which made me commit so many wrongs. Even the acid attack was his instigation. He said that if he ruined you, the guaranteed admission slot would be his, and he would love me forever. But I never expected that, from beginning to end, he was only using me, using my family's power to satisfy his own despicable vanity. I understood. In my previous life, the 3 of us were all pawns, and the true chess player was Daniel. No, perhaps behind Daniel there's an even bigger mastermind. Scorpio. I put the safety amulet back into my pocket. I know. Wait for me to return. We'll settle the accounts of the previous life properly. Golden Triangle, the Shadow Casino. This is a paradise of sin. The air is thick with the sense of money, desire, and blood. I changed into new clothes, disguised myself as a wealthy businessman from the island, and, flanked by bodyguards, walked into the casino. The auction was being held in the casino's top-floor VIP room. Anyone admitted here was without exception a titan of various powers or a merchant as wealthy as a nation. I sat down in an inconspicuous spot and quietly observed everyone present. Soon, the auction began. The host was a voluptuous blonde beauty who, with highly provocative language, introduced one rare lot after another. Ivory, rhinoceros horn, smuggled arms. Each piece was enough to put an ordinary person away for life. I waited patiently. Finally, at the end, the host announced in a mysterious tone, "Next, the grand finale lot of tonight. The legendary Eastern artifact that supposedly holds the secret to immortality. The 9-Dragon Jade Cup." No sooner had he spoken than 2 burly men carried a glass case draped in a red cloth onto the auction stage. The atmosphere in the hall ignited instantly. Greed showed in everyone's eyes. The red cloth was lifted, revealing a crystal-clear jade cup carved with 9 soaring dragons, appearing before the crowd. Even from a distance, I could feel the mysterious and ancient aura it exuded. Starting bid, $100 million US. Each raise must be at least 10 million. 150 million. 200 million. 300 million. The price skyrocketed, quickly breaking through the $500 million mark. I didn't rush to act. I was waiting for the best moment. At the same time, I was also looking for the person named Scorpio. Those who could bring out the Nine-Dragon Jade Cup to auction must be present at the scene. Just as the price climbed to $800 million and the bidding voices gradually thinned out, a cold, chilling voice came from the corner. 1 billion. The whole room erupted. Everyone's gazes turned toward that corner. I looked over too. A man wearing a black tang suit and half a silver mask sat there quietly. By his side stood several followers with fierce auras. It was him, the leader of Scorpio. I felt a stir in my heart and raised the card in my hand. 1.1 billion. The masked man seemed slightly surprised and glanced in my direction. The look in his eyes beneath the mask was like a viper's, cold and sharp. 1,200 million. 1.5 billion. I followed without hesitation. What I intended to do wasn't just to win the Jade Cup, but to provoke him into revealing his hand. The masked man fell silent. Just as the auctioneer was about to bring down the gavel, he spoke again. 2 billion. A trace of anger had crept into his voice, and I'd been waiting for this moment. I didn't raise the price. Instead, I slowly stood up and smiled at him. Then I pressed a button in my pocket. The next second, the lights of the entire casino went out in an instant. A shrill alarm blared through the sky. Move! I growled softly. Around us, Interpol agents and my bodyguards, who had long been lying in wait, pounced like tigers descending the mountain, rushing toward the auction stage and a masked man. Chaos erupted instantly at the scene, gunshots and screams intertwined. Taking advantage of the turmoil, I dashed toward the auction stage at top speed. My goal was only one thing, the Nine-Dragon Jade Cup. However, just as I was about to touch the glass case, a dark figure appeared before me like a phantom, blocking my way. It was that masked man. You brat, who on earth are you? His voice was like it came from the depths of hell. The one who's going to take your dog life. I stopped wasting words. With a heavy punch, I slammed it hard into his face. A vicious battle thus began. The masked man's skill exceeded my imagination. His moves were ruthless and strange, each strike aimed at my vital points. Relying on my youth and strength, I grappled with him, and for a time we couldn't determine a victor. In a fierce fight, the mask on his face was knocked off by my punch. When I saw his face clearly, I was struck as if by lightning, standing frozen on the spot. That face, turns out to be Daniel Brown. No, that's not right. The man before me looked exactly like Daniel, but his eyes were more sinister and his aura more mature. He was at least 40 years old. Surprised, Daniel sneered and kicked me, sending me flying. Or perhaps I should call you my clone. A clone? My mind went completely blank. 20 years ago, your mother, Eleanor York, did indeed give birth to a child. But that child had already died at birth. And you, I cloned you from the cells of that stillborn. As for me, he pointed to his face, I am the real leader of Scorpio. And the Daniel Brown you know is just another failed product I cloned using the same technique. My goal was never that Nine-Dragon Jade Cup, but you. Only by devouring you, the most perfect clone, can I rid myself of genetic defects and obtain true immortality. His words struck my mind like peals of thunder. I'm not Eleanor York's son. I'm just a clone, a vessel created so he could attain immortality. A huge sense of absurdity and anger engulfed me in an instant. You're talking nonsense. I roared and charged at him again. This time, I no longer held anything back. It was hatred, humiliation, a determination to tear this devil before me apart that sustained me. Our battle was earth-shattering. The entire casino, under our destruction, became a wasteland. In the end, with the help of Interpol, I seized an opportunity. I used my body to take his blade, and at the same time, I drove a dagger hard into his heart. You. He looked at me in disbelief as his body slowly collapsed. Before he died, that mad, uncanny smile was still on his face. Everything was over. The Scorpio organization was wiped out, and the Nine-Dragon Jade Cup was returned to the York family. As for me, I fell into a deep confusion. Who exactly am I? What, then, is the meaning of my existence? Back in the capital, I told Eleanor Yerk everything. She held me, sobbing uncontrollably. No matter whether you are my biological child, in my heart you will always be my son. It was you who avenged us, the York family, for the blood feud. My foster parents also held my hands, telling me that no matter what I become, they will love me forever. Under the warmth of family affection, I gradually emerged from the shadows. Yes, who am I, and what does it matter? I am Ethan Johnson. That is enough. Back in the room, Sophia had already put on the maid outfit. I took the handcuffs she wanted out of the suitcase and bound her to the bed.